ES Audio.
It's hard to believe now, but once upon a time, not so long ago, Facebook was a startup.
The UK was the first place that then Facebook, now Meta, came to. We had commercial teams that started, in a small, and I mean like properly small office off of Soho Square, less than 10 people, some sofas, and believe it or not, a fax machine.
Steve Hatch is Meta's Northern Europe VP, a man who joined the company 8 years ago, not long after it first arrived in the UK, and has played a leading role in its extraordinary growth.
So it's almost felt that one of the kind of original mantras we had of feeling 1% finished. That still feels that way, 1%, and that sense of these things we can always make it better.
I'm David Marsden from the Evening Standard, and for this episode we've travelled to Meta's brand new HQ near London's King's Cross, where 4,000 people work across 620,000 square feet of office space, and there's not a fax machine in sight. Well, let's start off. We're in this brand new Meta building here in King's Cross in London. I guess the first question is, how exciting was it to come back to the office?
Well, it was really exciting, and I'm sure for all of us the last couple of years have been challenging in loads of different ways, but particularly if you're working, to be with people in 3D rather than 2D was just great, and that experience of rather than looking at that pinhole shaped thing at the top of your computer, but to actually be with people. And I gotta say, initially it wasn't great for our efficiency, because you're spending all the time hi, and just stopping in the corridors. But I think it speaks a lot to having a great new place to come back into as well. So there was that additional excitement, and there were over 5,000 workstations here around the buildings we're putting into King's Cross, and we're now over 4,000 people in London already, and it's our largest engineering centre outside of our headquarters in California. This has sort of cemented London's importance to us, and on the global stage as much as on the local one.
Yeah, it's very much a bricks and mortar certification of Meta's commitment to London, really, isn't it? Why did you do it? Why here? Why not Paris or Madrid or anywhere?
Yeah, well, those are all great cities.
Yes.
We have kind of great folks that are working in those locations as well. But it is a statement about London and about the UK, and there's a combination of factors that go into that. One which is we have amazing skill sets here in this country. The technical capability here is second to none. It's also an extremely desirable place for people to want to come and work, and the diversity of this city is often something that when my colleagues come here to work or visit, they really notice that, and that sense of London is London, but also London is lots of Londons as well, and people really get a kick out of that. And then you combine that with the creativity, the kind of and on top of that, it's one of the most advanced kind of advertising markets in the world. And if you look at areas like e-commerce, the UK is the largest by percentage of sales e-commerce market anywhere. So there's lots to see and kind of do and build, lots of reasons to be here.
Yeah, and now that the building is open, just recently opened, is that hard though to get a kind of feeling of a team though, when you've got people in different locations and doing different things, some in the building, some in their home, some elsewhere? I mean, how do you gather it all together and go, we are one team? Yeah,
well, that's why the working principle that we've set at the moment is that is 50-50. So 50% of the working time, and we're quite broad about working time, and there's no, in a way, sort of like literal set hours, but in that sense. But 50% of the time in office, in inverted commas, but that might be like people out meeting students at universities, or kind of meeting partners in and around London, and then 50% elsewhere, and probably most people would define that as being home. So what we're working on is what is the work that's really great when you're together, when you're really great when it's in person, and certainly some of the collaborative work that's there, some of the relationship building really works very well, particularly after not having that for 2 years.
Yes.
But the one thing we've been really mindful about is not setting fixed days on that. So not saying this has to be X day, but leaving that to teams and to managers to work out what's best for them.
Right.
And that's very much part of the culture of the company, which is, how do we now enable people to work in the way that works for them, to kind of be as much of themselves as they can be at work? And it's quite a bold step to then say, and you know what? That also includes when you think it's going to be great for you to be in the office and when you think your work might be more productive at home.
Now, without giving away too many corporate secrets, you've got this nice new building. I'd imagine there's some new work coming out of it.
We have specific teams that are developing products for the world here. So whether that's our interest in commerce, creators, I should say, service, and it's not much pointing on a podcast, but for our benefit over there, another bit is our Reality Labs building, and that's the teams that are dedicated on building out a lot of the hardware and software that's building the metaverse. And that's obviously really, really exciting work. And then of course, on top of that, we have teams that are working with commercial partners and businesses up and down the country.
The metaverse is fascinating to me, and the potential for those things. Can you give us an idea of what sort of things you're looking at that are coming specifically from here? Yeah,
I mean, it may be worth just taking a quick step back on what it is, because that's often the first question, and it's certainly broken through into like popular conversation. And so really the way to think about the metaverse is, in the early stages of accessing the internet and spending time online, we wrote to the internet, we typed. And if you're dyslexic like me, that was a bit of a challenge sometimes, but you sort of made it work. And most latterly, as we've seen that shift to mobile in particular, we would see the shift towards imagery and video. So we're looking at the internet, often via mobile devices. What the next wave of computing platform, so this desktop to mobile to metaverse, is going to be defined much more by experiences where we're either participating in virtual environments, or we're bringing those environments more into our real world through augmented reality. So this blended experience of the internet, where we have much more of a sense of what we call presence and that kind of level of engagement. So here you'll see lots of software bits. So the products that give you a bit of sense of that are things like, a good example will be our Spark AR, which is an amazing tool that enables creators, in fact kind of anyone, to create filters. And interestingly, we're seeing glimpses about how all this might begin to come together, and there are now 700 million people across our platforms every month using augmented reality filters in some way.
Oh, has that grown quite a lot? That must be quite a recent growth, though.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it really has. So it just sort of shows the appetite that's there to be more expressive, to have some fun, and also find new ways of communicating, that can be really kind of engaging forms of kind of entertain or education, I should say, that you can learn more about the world around you, or just really fun stuff like on Portal, which is our kind of predominantly in-home device, where it enables you to predominantly, the uses is easy video calling across kind of Messenger or WhatsApp between family and friends. And there's a great story time feature on that, where you can tell so lots of great stories of grandparents, particularly during the pandemic, actually, we're increasing that, like using those augmented reality features to be part of the story and telling. And it's that kind of connection, that kind of real emotional connection to people that we find most powerful.
When I see things like that, I always think, wow, I can't believe I'm living in the future. Do you get those moments yourself? Because I mean, you've probably seen these things from the first note, and that looks quite interesting, and then you see it. But do you get almost like a childlike excitement when you actually get to see it?
100%. Like, kind of all the time. I mean, I really agree with you on that sense of, things that felt like science fiction or the stuff of tomorrow's world, now actually everyday life. But interestingly, kind of within that, there's also that sense of we get used to things really quickly as well. So it's really important that we stay on that kind of cutting edge of innovation. We look at what people enjoying doing and finding it easier for them to do. I mean, it's quite remarkable just how for granted we take something like video calling actually now, whereas even a few years ago that would have seemed pretty magical.
And thinking about that and where we are now, And also something you said near the beginning of this interview, it's incredible to think that Meta was once a tiny startup. Isn't it? It's just extraordinary where the idea for a startup can take you and the different avenues that they can go. That must be, you mean you've been with the company 8 years, you said? There's been a lot of evolution. There's a name change for a start, a lot of evolution, a lot of growth within this company. Is that exciting for you? Do you see like an unlimited potential, or do you go, right, we've got to stop here at some point?
Well, I don't know if we've ever defined where we'll stop, but but there certainly is. It's always been the thing that attracted me to the company. Is it's always been very mission led, and that might, I don't know, maybe sometimes the British hears things like that sound a bit mission. What do we mean by that? But actually, having a really clear sense of what we want to do, and certainly for the first years I was here, it was to make the world more open and connected. This kind of real value on a belief that the more connected people are, like generally the better it is. And I think that's always been really exciting, and that drove a lot of them. And then our moves into helping people build community, whether that's through groups or other features. And it's kind of really interesting seeing just how real and powerful that was during the pandemic. And I just think about and I mean literally millions of people that joined a COVID local resiliency group on Facebook to help support each other and connect to each other, let alone that neighbor that WhatsApped you that you'd probably walk past that house hundreds of times, but then all of a sudden that was a person that might be getting your medicine or telling you that the milk's back in stock. And now this next journey into building the next computing platform, the way that people approach these complex problems with humility and excitement, and knowing that, well, if this is good, but how can we improve it? So that stayed, whether that's my experience of before I joined, where it was meeting those 8 people in a sofa, to when I joined it was hundreds, to now where we're thousands here and kind of tens of thousands around the world. That still feels very true.
I don't know about the old ones, but the sofas at the new office, I have to say, are very comfy, and you get a lovely view across London. So I'm going to enjoy that for a sec while you check out these adverts. And while they're on, why not hit that follow button on your podcast provider so you never miss an episode of How to Be a CEO. It's kind of like that old Walt Disney quote when he opened Disneyland, and he said, "Are you glad it's finished?" And he went, "It will never be finished."
Interesting.
Isn't it? That kind of. Yeah. I guess, is that a good mindset to have when you're setting out to start up your own company, and then you've got your mission, but when that mission's done, the company's got to. You've got to constantly evolve.
You have to. I mean, interesting. As you mentioned, startups, because that's a big focus for us. I mean, our growth as a business is wholly dependent on the growth that we provide for other businesses, and a huge percentage of those businesses are small businesses. One of the joys of my job is being able to meet those individual entrepreneurs, those peoples, and we never forget, and I never forget every single one of those people that's got an incredible story that they've taken place a bet on themselves or their family, and how am I going to invest this £10, £100, £1,000 to help to grow? So we're always thinking about how do we build tools, and this is kind of one of our principles. We build for everyone. So the technologies we build to help commercial success for businesses, there isn't a tiering. It's not like, okay, you're a great big PLC, so you get this, or you're a small startup, so you only get that. Everybody gets the same, and like being able to build tools that are accessible and democratized means that there are thousands of businesses, probably even within the kind of like a few postcodes that we can see from this location, who, and not just us, I must say, other technology platforms as well, but who just wouldn't have been able to exist or grow in the way that they have without that democratization. Yeah, I really do, and a lot of that is because it sounds simple, but it's brilliantly simple and hard at the same time. When we speak to small businesses, they'll always say our biggest challenge is new customers. How do I go and find new people that are going to grow and find my product? And once you take kind of geography out of that makes a big difference. So you're not limited by the people that are in your street or your town, and you bring interest into that, and you think about your audiences well, I want to sell this amazing dog bed to everyone. My dog bed's so good. You know, every dog should be, you know, kids should sleep on my dog bed.
Dude, I've bought a dog bed from Facebook.
Really?
Literally, genuinely.
Oh, you must sell with the company. Okay. Well, I have a dog, so you know, we've kind of like we've got. Okay. All right. Yeah. There's a number of dog fans here, but you know that's the power of kind of the platforms, which is to be able to go. I want to speak to people that are kind of most likely to buy this. So and on the other side, from people that are buying things or finding things, what we call discovering products on our platform. Our goal is always to make that a really good experience. So you to see the things that are useful or valuable. Sounds like the dog bed was useful in this case.
It certainly was. But how does, I mean, you must have been asked this every time you go to a dinner party. How do I use Facebook to get my company out there? How do I use it best? What are the best tips? What are the sorts of things you give people?
Yeah. So I mean, the great thing is that so many tools are available without cost.
Yeah.
So you're able to set up a Facebook page, you're able to set up an Instagram profile, you're able to get some insight into oh, it's interesting, who is interested in my product, how does it work. You're able to, so we try and make the stages as simple as possible to create the most value as possible along those stages. So there were things like a very simple starting of, okay, I'm going to post some content, and then you might have the option to boost that post so that more people see it. And there's ever increasing ways of being sophisticated in terms of, okay, I want to look at the geographies of this or the types of what. But there's also the other things that we'll always say to people is be really clear about your creative proposition as well, and the way that you're creating things. Think about the things that you would want to look at, because in the way that a feed environment works, you know, you're scrolling, you know, quite rightly, like, people place a premium on their attention and their time. So make work that you think is going to be really interesting, and we call it like thumb stopping creative. Like, what's gonna make me kind of like, you know, we might provide the right people, but you got to provide the right kind of content, and increasingly that content is video in some form.
Fine.
So we've seen.
So is that more than imagery itself, for example, more than a photograph or a picture?
Yeah, there's still a role there's still a role to do that, and they still play an important part in feed, an important part of communication. But being able to make compelling video is increasingly important, particularly as we see short form video increase across our platform. So Reels, for example, on Instagram, that's now 20% of the time that people are spending on Instagram, they're spending it in the Reels environment.
Oh, I'm quite surprised at 20%. Again, that's another fast growth, because Reels isn't that a year or two?
Nope, that's right. Yeah, it's still relatively new. So it just shows the speed of, going back to that speed of expectation.
Yeah, so you're offering these different opportunities, and I guess the Metaverse, is that going to be useful to a small business, let's say selling dog beds again? How are they going to use the Metaverse?
Well, maybe you can create Dogtopia somewhere, and
that's leave Facebook. We're going to start a new company selling dog beds.
This could be it. Well, I think we're quite a way away from some of that kind of commerce opportunity. Maybe even 5 to 10 years before these things are fully realized. However, the experimentation. So as I mentioned, trying filters, trying different ways of being able to engage with the people that you look at. That's there for sure now. And then there are this is less about the metaverse, but more about the right now, building out shops products that turns every single business, if you're operating on our platforms, you can then have a shop front. And of course, that was just incredibly important over the last couple of years, where the only way we could shop in many cases was online, and we've seen a lot of those behaviors stick around. But we also want to help, we also do a lot of work with high street, so it's quite surprising. I think people assume online, therefore it's just online products that you're buying. It can be further from the truth, whether you're hairdressers, barbers, dentists, all of the things that make that you need to be there for and make a high street more important. They're definitely there as well. But Metaverse, there's creeping small steps on the commerce. Even though I did see Wendy's did a Wendyverse in Quest just most recently, so we're seeing a lot of experimentation, and it's great to see that, because that helps. I know Dyson created their own store within within Quest. So we're seeing a lot of trialing that's taking place. But certainly for right now, we see AR as being a really interesting way for brands and companies to be able to bring a great level of interest in the stuff they're doing.
That must be exciting for you to have created the kind of the playground for other people to play within and then see, I guess, potential that you never even realized was there.
Oh, well, that, I mean, I've got to say, those are the most exciting things, where, we're a platform, and as much as, we're providing the tools, our job is to, provide those tools, but the inspiration that you get from seeing how people use them, and God, there's been so many moments where I've seen that in my time. I mean, I will mention the one, just only because I've just been testing the new thing at the moment, but a company like Flare Audio, which is a audio company based in Lancing and Sussex, and they have a kind of range of kind of in-ear headphones and block, a very, very kind of good audio company, and they just recently created a brand of what they call Calm, which was like an in-ear, like a something that blocks some of the higher pitch noise into your ears, and it was there to kind of help with anxiety, kind of reduces stress, and they found it to be quite powerful. What they found is they were getting incredible feedback from the autistic community that were saying, this is really helping my son, my child, or me in being able to concentrate or focus or feel calmer. And you wouldn't have known that without it being out there. So they then thought, okay, well, we need to embrace this more. They then found an autistic artist and designer to help create their ads, and all of their illustrations are now in their work, and the product is proving to be a kind of real commercial success for them. But it's one of those examples where, is there any way we could have predicted when you're making these things that somewhere down the line there's going to be this incredible autistic illustrator who's going to get a commission from a company that's really successful locally as a result of the work they're doing? And I think it's those moments of serendipity and connection that, it's why you come into work every day, because you hear so many of those stories. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you mentioned just briefly that you're dyslexic. When you were a kid, did anybody believe you would be where you are right now?
I mean, yes, I am dyslexic, and to clear, I'm proudly dyslexic as well. I do view it as a superpower. I get a lot of support, and I'm kind of like quite clear about that support. There are some great organisations like Made with Dyslexia that have done a lot of work in this area, and EY created a brilliant analysis of how dyslexic skills map to the modern workplace. Right. And we know kind of retention of information it's not that it's less valuable, but we've got the internet. But interpretation of information, being able to bring people together, to have creative ideas, to be able to see connections that weren't there before, those are a lot of the things that companies are looking for. So I'm really happy to contribute to that. At the bottom of my email, my sign off is, I'm dyslexic, sorry for any typos. Maybe in the future I won't have to say sorry, but it feels polite to do that, to do that now. And I'm very open with my team around it as well. And I think that there's anything in there that's about a broader leadership lesson, is that it's those vulnerabilities and those opennesses that actually create more energy and more creativity and more performance in a team. Because if you're able to say, this is what I'm having to manage and I need your help with in these ways, it gives permission. And I think the idea of kind of previously the kind of very corporate definition of leadership, where it's just untouchable, strong, I just don't think that's as real anymore. I don't even know if it was real then, and I certainly don't think it is now, where you need people, because we're working in complex ways. Nobody has all of those answers, so you have to kind of like liberate all the skills of everyone. So I really hope that being public about that and celebrating my dyslexia, it gives additional permission. And I'm the exec sponsor for our disability app group here, and it's an incredible kind of group of people. And lastly, we build products for the world, so we need to have people working on our company that are as representative as possible of all aspects of what it is to be 3 billion plus people that are using our platforms. So having an environment where people feel they belong here helps us create better products to go and serve the rest of the folks out there. So yeah, you can tell I can go on about this one for a long time. But I suppose the short answer is, if you'd asked me back then, I wouldn't have found it incredible in the literal sense, not credible literal sense of that. But I definitely, and this is what I'm trying to do, which is harsh reality of this, is it gets easier to talk about these things when you are more successful.
Yeah.
And what I want to be able to do is to help normalize that as much as possible, so it doesn't require a degree of, okay, I've got to this level now, I feel a bit more secure, I can talk about it. Let's celebrate all the differences that everybody's bringing into the organization or wherever anybody is working, right from the get-go, right from day one, right from the very first moment you start work. So that's why I hope I'd go back and give that message to my younger self.
That was Steve Hatch from Meta. For the latest business news, analysis and big name interviews, read the Evening Standard or go to standard.co.uk/business. New episodes of How to Be a CEO are available first thing every Monday morning. We'd love to see you again.